Hello and welcome to Brocky Mountain Movies. I'm your host, Rocky Mountain Brock, and today we talk about The Witch, or as it's spelled, the VVitch. A family is banished from a pilgrim's colony and must make their own settlement at the edge of a dark forest. Each of the characters is dealing with their own inner demons, as well as a group dynamic, all while trying to survive, and while there, they experience several strange omens and an overall sense of unease and dread. Each character is struggling with their own sins and inner demons, while also being tormented by a witch. Or at least, that's what the description of the movie says. Because this movie is one of the most divisive I've ever seen, and I've seen American Sniper, Passion of the Christ, and Man of Steel. So what makes this movie so divisive? Well, pros and cons. Every character is performed incredibly well. These are a handful of incredibly strong performances, and for the most part, a lot of the characters reflect really good inner struggle. The father is very prideful, the son is experiencing lustful temptation towards his sister, and the wife is slightly envious. And there's also some good talks about religion and doubt thereof. Score is a masterclass in setting an ominous tone, in making sure that you feel that unease. In a sense, one could say that this is one of the best and underrated horror films to come out in recent years. But if that's so, what are the cons? Well, it boils down to three major problems. The first problem is that while the directing and composing are masterclasses in creating a sense of dread within the viewer, it's not very good at showing the actual horrifics, as in showing the real punch of it all. Here's a scene where a witch kidnaps a baby, kills him, and then uses his remains to make an ointment that she then rubs on herself. But the problem is, I have to tell you that, because if you watch the movie, there is no way you would actually interpret that as what's going on, given what you were shown. There's also the finale where it's heavily implied that children are being burnt to death, like they're being used as firewood. But again, if I don't tell you this, there's no way that you would interpret that from what you're being shown in the movie. The other two problems, the movie doesn't fully know what it wants to be, because there are two interpretations of how this goes. One is that a witch is directly influencing the family and making all these bad things happen as a way to torment them and test their faith. But then you have the second problem, which is that the whole movie is in fact an origin story, in which case the oldest daughter of the family is being turned into a witch, and this is just sort of her origin story. And you get the first problem. One is that if you're going with the interpretation that the witch is tormenting the family, she doesn't exactly have an end game, in which case, what is she trying to do? I mean, you sort of get that she has a bit of a plan. First, she kidnaps the baby, turns him into an ointment, which she rubs on her skin, which she then uses to seduce the other boy. But after he's witched and he's subsequently killed in front of them, I guess the idea is that all of this weakens the mother, which is ultimately what they're trying to do. But again, where's the end game? What is the witch, and by extension the devil, what are they trying to do? What is the end game? That's the thing with all great villains and the devil himself. There's always an end game. There's always something that they want. And again, you got all this good momentum, but which again boils down to this very interesting scene. The mother is experiencing a dream where she sees her two dead sons together and she's overjoyed. But then the son says that she has to sign a book. This is where it starts getting good. This is the end game. This is what you're trying to do, and it goes nowhere. If you have a bunch of strong performances, they have to add up to something. And simply put, this movie doesn't. And then, of course, you have the other interpretation, in which case this is one big origin story where the main character is losing her entire family and how she sort of gets to the point where she would become a witch. Here's the major problem, though. She is the most boring. And I'm not saying that in a she was already the best among him, so it means the most that she finally does it. I'm saying that with a bunch of strong performances in her, she doesn't have any real temptation. Everyone else, you're given all these strong performances of what's ultimately their undoing. She doesn't have anything that's worth tempting her about. She doesn't have any of the seven deadly sins, unlike the rest of her family that are legitimately struggling. In fact, in the end, when she finally does become a witch, it doesn't seem like it's been building to her becoming a witch so much as what now? That's pretty much it. We're in the same boat as her. We're both saying, what now? What has this been building towards? I guess the best scene in the film would be when the son is confessing his sins. It's the one time where you're like, what did they tell this kid when he was acting it, but in the best possible way? Because he knocks it out of the park and shows how this movie is full of strong performances. Then you get to the worst scene where the mom is being set up and it goes nowhere, which highlights the problem with the film. You can have a bunch of strong performances, but it has to add up to something. So, final score, I give it the final decisive and 5. You're either going to like it or you don't. I'm Rocky Mountain Brock, and God bless.